Welcome to Trending Unpacked, where we make sense of the stories capturing attention online. Today we're diving into the world of Pokémon cards, why they're back in the spotlight, and what it says about nostalgia, money, and culture. You might have noticed them everywhere recently, right? From your TikTok feed showcasing dramatic pack openings to news headlines reporting on record-breaking auctions. It truly seems like those vibrant little pieces of cardboard many of us meticulously collected as kids are having a massive moment again. It's kind of hard to ignore the buzz around them. What aspects of this resurgence do you find most compelling, and I guess what do you think they reveal about, our current cultural landscape?
That's a fantastic question, and it really sets the stage for what we'll uncover today. What's fascinating here is that while, many might see this as simply a resurfacing of a childhood hobby, the current situation with Pokemon cards actually reveals some incredibly interesting shifts. Shifts in how we perceive value, how we engage with pop culture, and honestly, even how an entire generation navigates financial decisions.
Financial decisions, really.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at more than just a trading card here. We're looking at a cultural artifact that's taken on entirely new layers of meaning. It's sort of bridging the playground with the investment portfolio in ways, well, few other collectibles have really managed.
It's quite the transformation, isn't it? For many of us, Pokemon cards weren't just a game. They were like a defining part of childhood. I vividly remember the sheer excitement of getting a new pack, that anticipation peeling back the foil wrapper, hoping for that rare holographic card. Thinking back to those days, it felt like a fun, pretty low-stakes hobby, a simple exchange of cards with friends. But how did something that started as essentially a playground craze evolve into this, well, multi-million-dollar phenomenon we're witnessing today, where a single piece of cardboard can command the price of a luxury car or even a house? It's kind of mind-blowing.
It is an incredible evolution, yeah. And to truly understand it, we have to journey back to the very beginning. The Pokemon card phenomenon didn't actually originate here in the US, which surprises some people. It first launched in Japan in October 1996. Media Factory was the company. It was basically riding on the coattails of the hugely popular Pokemon Red and Green video games over there.
Ah, okay. So it wasn't standalone. It was linked to the games from day one.
Exactly. The concept was simple, but frankly brilliant. Capture and battle creatures, but in card form. This created an immediate, tangible extension of the digital world that kids were already obsessed with.
That makes sense. Giving kids a physical way to interact with the world they loved online, or on their Game Boys, rather. So when did it make its way over here to the States?
Not long after its Japanese debut, actually. Wizards of the Coast, they were already a big name, with Magic, The Gathering.
What? Huge.
Right. They saw the potential and brought Pokemon cards to the United States in early 1999. And from there, the global spread was almost instantaneous. It was incredibly rapid.
Wow, so it wasn't a slow burn.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It was more like an explosion of interest that just captivated children and, well, collectors worldwide in a really short period. The game's accessibility, combined with that allure of collecting all the unique creatures, it just resonated deeply with a global audience.
And it really did captivate everyone. I vividly recall the absolute intensity of trading during recess. It felt like the stock market of elementary school. Every kid had their binder, their prized possessions, and negotiations could get pretty heated over a particularly coveted card.
You're touching on a crucial aspect there, the immense social impact. The intensity of collecting and trading was so high. I mean, disputes over cards became so common that some schools actually banned them altogether.
They banned Pokemon cards. I think I remember hearing about that.
Oh, yeah. Imagine the scene. Kids arguing over, perceived unfair trades, cards being lost or stolen, the sheer distraction from lessons. For school administrators, it just became this significant source of playground drama. And it demonstrates just how passionate, maybe even obsessive, that early collecting community could be. It wasn't just a casual game. It was this deeply ingrained social activity and a very personal pursuit of rare treasures, fueled by the thrill of acquisition and, let's be honest, the desire for status among peers.
Absolutely. Having the cool card was everything. And within that intensely competitive environment, there were always those legendary cards, weren't there? The ones everyone wanted, cards that seemed to hold a special, almost mythical status even back then. What were some of those early symbols of value?
Yeah, there definitely were. The holographic Charizard card stands out as, like, the ultimate early symbol of value and rarity. It effectively set a precedent.
The Charizard, of course. The orange dragon everyone wanted.
That's the one. Even in the early 2000s, this particular card was already fetching hundreds of dollars in certain circles, which was, a lot back then for a card.
Hundreds. For a card kids were trading.
hmm To put that in perspective, at a time when most kids were happy to get any shiny card for maybe $1, a single Charizard could be worth what felt like a king's ransom. This wasn't common for most trading cards at the time. It established very early on that certain Pokemon cards could indeed be high-value collectibles, moving beyond mere playthings into a realm of, well, serious collecting.
So it showed the potential for significant financial appreciation, even way back then, long before this current boom.
Precisely. It wasn't just about playing the game. It was about holding something truly special, something that garnered respect and, yeah, envy.
Okay, so we had this initial explosive phase. A genuine cultural phenomenon leads to school bans, creates instant legends like the Charizard. Then maybe things cooled off a bit, or at least it settled into being popular but maybe a bit more niche, just part of the background noise of pop culture for a while. But in the last few years, we've seen this incredible, almost unprecedented explosion of interest again. What happened? What reignited that fire so dramatically, and when did this new era of hype and, frankly, big money value really take hold?
Yeah, that's the question, right? The current wave of popularity really began to build momentum in the late 2010s. And then it just hit this exponential growth phase in the early 2020s. Like around the pandemic time, things really took off.
Okay, so fairly recently then.
Yeah. And it wasn't just one single thing. It was more a convergence of several factors that created a sort of perfect storm for the resurgence. A significant driver, and one that really catapulted the cards back into mainstream awareness, has been the impact of prominent social media figures, influencers.
Ah, influencers. Like who?
Well, for example, individuals like Logan Paul, who has this massive YouTube and social media following, he started showcasing his high-value cards.
Oh, right. I remember seeing headlines about that. He had a Charizard, didn't he? A really expensive one.
Exactly. He famously displayed a first-edition holographic Charizard, which he acquired for a staggering $150,000.
The $150,000.
And he even wore a different, arguably even more valuable PSA-graded Charizard around his neck during his boxing match with Floyd Mayweather. Remember that?
I do. That seems so over the top at the time. Wearing a Pokemon card like jewelry?
Well, yeah, but this kind of public high-profile display, especially by a celebrity with such a huge and diverse following, it didn't just grab headlines. It brought significant mainstream attention to the collecting scene. It basically introduced the idea that these kids' cards could be serious assets to an entirely new audience, people who might not have been aware of the potential value. It sparked curiosity, speculation.
It makes sense. It normalizes it somehow, seeing it treated like a high-value item.
It was a masterclass, really, in amplifying market trends through celebrity endorsement.
That's an astronomical amount of money for a single card. And seeing someone famous treat it with that level of reverence and that financial investment, it would definitely make people think, wait, what's going on here? Should I be digging through my old collection in the attic?
Precisely. Celebrity endorsement acts like a supercharger for market trends sometimes, transforming niche interests into widespread phenomena almost overnight. And following this, or maybe alongside it, public auctions started to shatter previous records. Just astonishing pace. We started seeing PSA-graded cards selling for literally hundreds of thousands of dollars, some even breaking the $1 million mark.
Millions for one card. Okay, you mentioned PSA graded again. That sounds important. What exactly is that?
It's absolutely crucial, yeah.
Yeah.
For those unfamiliar, PSA stands for Professional Sports Authenticator. They're one of the leading third-party grading services for trading cards, collectibles, that sort of thing. When a card is PSA graded, it means it's been authenticated, checked to make sure it's real, and then professionally assessed for its condition. They use a scale, usually 1 to 10, with 10 being gem mint, basically perfect.
Okay, so it's like getting a diamond certified. It adds legitimacy.
Exactly like that. This grading system provides a formalized, objective standard for rarity and quality, which is essential when you're talking about high-value transactions. It adds this critical layer of financial legitimacy and, importantly, trust to the market. It allows collectors and investors to transact with confidence in the card's authenticity and its condition.
So it's not just about finding an old card in your attic anymore. It's about getting it officially verified and graded to unlock its true market potential. The grading itself becomes almost a new layer of value creation, an industry within an industry.
Absolutely. That formalization is key to understanding the current market dynamics. And alongside these high-stakes options, digital amplification played an absolutely massive role in creating hype and engaging a whole new generation of collectors.
You mean like social media?
Yeah, platforms like TikTok, for instance, popularized pack openings. You see creators live stream themselves unboxing new packs of cards.
Oh, I've seen those. It's strangely compelling.
It's incredibly engaging. You're sharing the suspense and excitement with thousands, sometimes millions of viewers in real time. There's this undeniable thrill in watching someone pull a super rare card live.
Yeah, you feel like you're right there with them.
Exactly. And that communal experience fosters a sense of shared joy and, instant gratification. It turns what could be a solitary hobby into a public spectacle, almost a performance.
It's like a shared lottery ticket, but with better graphics, maybe. And you're watching someone else open it. The suspense must be addictive for viewers.
It genuinely is.
It is.
And similarly, YouTube saw the rise of box breaks. These are on an even larger scale, often involving an entire sealed box of cards being opened live.
An entire box, like dozens of packs.
Yeah, offering even more opportunities for those rare finds. These digital formats truly transform what was once maybe a more private hobby into this communal performative experience. They foster community, provide that instant gratification, and they kind of democratize the thrill of the hunt, letting anyone participate vicariously.
That makes sense. It lowers the barrier to experiencing that excitement.
And what's also fascinating here, connecting back to the financial side, is how these cards are now being repositioned. They're perceived as alternative investments. They're increasingly discussed in the same breath as other contemporary alternative assets like, highly sought-after sneakers, luxury watches.
Wow, Rolexes and Jordans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even NFTs, non-fungible tokens, those unique digital assets that had their own massive boom in the art and collectible space.
Right, NFTs. That's the interesting comparison. So this shift in perception from, playground toy to alternative investment, that feels really significant. What does this imply about how younger generations, particularly millennials and maybe Gen Z, are viewing asset classes in personal finance? It seems like a move away from purely traditional investment vehicles like stocks and bonds.
It absolutely does. I think this shift suggests a blending of personal passion with financial strategy. For younger generations who often have a, let's say, different relationship with traditional financial institutions and markets, these alternative assets offer something else. They offer a tangible, culturally relevant, and often more accessible entry point into investing.
Accessible how?
Well, you can often buy a single graded card for less than a share of some major stocks, maybe. And the online marketplaces, social media, they allow for easier participation compared to, say, navigating the complexities of the stock market or real estate. They're not just buying an asset, they're investing in something that has personal meaning, cultural cachet, a story attached.
So it's investing in something you actually understand and care about.
Exactly. There's a democratizing element, too.
Yeah.
It's a way to potentially build wealth that resonates with their values and interests, not just abstract numbers on a screen.
That's an incredible journey, then. From a simple playground staple to a serious alternative investment class. You've highlighted the role of influencers, digital platforms, the grading system, this formalization of the market. But what are the deeper underlying reasons for this intense interest and value? The internet, as you can imagine, is absolutely buzzing with theories. What's truly driving this phenomenon beyond the surface-level hype and the mechanics of the market?
Right, that's where we get to the heart of the cultural and psychological undercurrents. Because while the surface hype is visible, the Logan Pauls and the big auction numbers, the enduring appeal stems from a confluence of really powerful psychological and cultural factors. One of the most significant, I think, is what we call the nostalgia effect.
Ah, nostalgia, the big one.
Definitely. Think about it. The millennials who grew up with the original Pokémon craze in the late 90s and early 2000s, they're now in their late 20s, 30s, even early 40s. They have, for the most part, established careers and, crucially, a significant amount of disposable income compared to when they were kids.
Right, they can actually afford the cards they dreamed of back then.
Exactly. Their motivation is often deeply personal. They are actively buying back a piece of their childhood memories. It's a tangible connection to what feels like a simpler, perhaps more carefree time in their lives. It's very much an emotional investment, maybe even more than a financial one for some.
So it's not just about the card itself. It's about the feeling, the memory attached to the card. It's almost a form of, self-soothing, a way to reconnect with a period of innocence that often feels pretty far removed from the complexities and stresses of adult life.
It certainly taps into that. It reflects how powerful that urge to reconnect with those cherished childhood symbols can be, especially when facing adult responsibilities. It can be a form of escapism, a re-engagement with a personal past. But beyond nostalgia, we also see the powerful influence of what's known as the scarcity economy.
Scarcity economy. Okay, explain that.
Well, the value isn't purely organic, arising just from demand. It's often meticulously engineered and amplified by the market itself.
Engineered scarcity? That sounds a bit cynical, maybe? How does that work with something like cards, which are, at their core, mass-produced items?
It's a brilliant market mechanism, really. While, yes, basic common cards are mass-produced, the collectible market thrives on deliberate limitations and perceived rarity. Mechanisms like limited edition reprints, the explicit labeling of first edition cards.
Ah, the first edition stamp. That was always the dream.
Right. That little stamp makes a huge difference. And of course, the professional sports authenticator, the PSA grading system we talked about. All of these contribute to creating this, you could call it artificial rarity. For example, a first edition holographic Charizard is inherently scarcer than one from a later unlimited print run. That's straightforward. But then, a card that receives a perfect 10-gem mint grade from PSA is exponentially rarer than the exact same card that has maybe a tiny corner ding and gets a 9 or an 8.
Even if they look almost identical to the naked eye.
Pretty much. That tiny difference in grade translates to massive differences in value for serious collectors. So this deliberate scarcity, whether it's inherent to the print run or assigned through expert grading, directly fuels demand, and consequently, it drives up market prices. It effectively transforms these cards from simple playthings into highly prized, often highly priced assets.
That's a fascinating point. So are we talking about the same kind of psychological drivers that make, say, a limited edition handbag or a rare vintage car so desirable? Even if their basic function is similar to more common versions, it taps into something deeper than just utility, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It taps into our primal human desire for exclusivity, for possessing something that few others can have, regardless of the item itself. The difficulty of obtaining these rare items, whether through limited editions or achieving that perfect grading score, it amplifies their perceived value and desirability far beyond their material worth.
It's the thrill of the chase, the status of ownership.
Exactly.
Right.
This mechanism isn't unique to Pokémon cards, of course. It's a powerful psychological lever used across luxury goods, art, antiques, even digital collectibles now. It's a brilliant marketing strategy, frankly, building that sense of you can't just have this unless you're lucky, dedicated, or willing to pay a lot.
Okay, besides the nostalgia and the scarcity, there's the fact that Pokemon itself is just everywhere. It's an omnipresent force in pop culture, isn't it?
That's the third major factor, and it's huge.
Right.
Consistent pop culture reinforcement. Pokemon isn't just a card game, or even just video games. It's one of the most successful, pervasive entertainment franchises globally. Full stop.
Yeah, you can't really escape it.
Right. It spans wildly successful video games. New ones still come out regularly and top the charts. There's a long-running anime series that's been on air for, over 2 decades now. Multiple blockbuster animated films, even live-action movies like Detective Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu was surprisingly good, actually.
It was fun. And this constant, almost ubiquitous presence in popular culture ensures sustained interest. Crucially, it continuously introduces new generations to the brand. Think about it. A child today might discover Pokémon through a new game on their Nintendo Switch, then they see the animated show on Netflix, and then maybe they get introduced to the cards by a friend or relative.
It creates multiple entry points.
Exactly. This multi-platform strategy keeps the entire Pokémon ecosystem, including the card market, incredibly vibrant and relevant year after year. It brings in new fans while keeping the older ones engaged.
So it's not just relying on the old fans, the millennials with disposable income digging out their binders. It's constantly bringing in new blood, ensuring a continuous cycle of interest and demand across age groups.
Precisely. It's a testament to how a robust, ongoing narrative and an expansive universe can continually refresh interest in its related merchandise.
Okay, but this all sounds a bit intense, maybe even unsustainable. When you talk about hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars for a single card, it really makes me wonder, is this a solid investment strategy for people? Or are we potentially looking at a bubble, something waiting to pop? Similar to other collectible crazes we've seen blow up and then fade away, the internet certainly has a lot of opinions on that.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge point of contention and a very active debate among collectors, investors, financial analysts alike. It's probably the biggest question mark hanging over the market right now. On one side, you have the speculative bubble argument, and it warrants serious consideration. You can't just dismiss it. Critics here contend that the current boom mirrors past collecting fads that eventually crashed, leaving many collectors holding assets that suddenly became worth much, much less.
Like what? What are the parallels people draw?
The classic example is always Beanie Babies in the late 90s. Prices soared uncontrollably, people thought they were investing in their future, and then the market just plummeted.
Oh, I remember Beanie Babies. My closet was full of them. Worthless now, mostly.
Exactly. Or, more recently, you could look at the highly volatile NFT market. It saw these meteoric rises in value, followed by pretty steep corrections for a lot of projects. The implication here is a potential for a sharp market correction, maybe even a crash, for Pokemon cards too. That could indeed leave many recent investors holding assets that are worth only a fraction of what they paid.
So the concern is that the current value is largely driven by hype and speculation, FOMO, fear of missing out, rather than any real intrinsic worth or lasting utility.
That's the core of the bubble argument, yes. It suggests it might be driven by the greater fool theory, the idea that you can sell it for more only because there's someone even more foolish willing to pay a higher price until there isn't. It paints it as a high-stakes gamble.
Okay, that's the cautionary tale, but what's the other side? You mentioned a counter-argument.
Right. There's a strong counter-argument, often termed the cultural anchor argument. This offers a different, more optimistic outlook. Proponents of this view contend that Pokemon is fundamentally different from those fleeting fads like Beanie Babies. They see it as an evergreen phenomenon.
Evergreen, meaning it just keeps going.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Possessing a deeply embedded cross-generational appeal that transcends mere trends. From this perspective, Pokemon is more akin to established cultural properties that have demonstrated enduring significance and market value over decades.
Like what kind of properties?
Like Star Wars, Disney characters, maybe certain long-running comic book franchises like Batman or Spider-Man, things that have been cultural touchstones for multiple generations. This view suggests that Pokemon cards, because they're tied to this enduring franchise, will likely retain both their cultural and, crucially, their financial value over the long term, making them potentially a more stable and maybe even lucrative investment than a typical fad.
Okay, but what specifically makes Pokemon different in this perspective? What gives it that staying power compared to, say, a Beanie Baby or maybe even some NFTs?
I think what truly sets Pokemon apart is its unparalleled depth and breadth of continuous cultural output. That's the key word. Continuous. We're talking about this multi-platform narrative across games, anime, movies, merchandise that consistently re-engages and expands its audience. It secures a fresh supply of enthusiasts in a way that very few other collecting phenomena manage.
So Beanie Babies didn't have the games and the movies to back them up.
Exactly. Beanie Babies were largely a single-product fad. NFTs, while technologically innovative, often lacked a cohesive, widely recognized narrative or universe to anchor their value for the general public, beyond the tech itself. Pokemon, by contrast, constantly reinvents itself. New regions, new Pokemon, new game mechanics while retaining its core appeal. This ensures its relevance and cultural footprint remain immense. This continuous influx of new content and new fans keeps the market vibrant. It prevents it from relying solely on the nostalgia of just one generation, which is what often happens with fads.
That makes sense. It's constantly refreshing its own audience.
That ongoing cultural production is probably the strongest argument for it being more of a cultural anchor than a bubble.
It's clear there's so much more than just simple card collecting happening here. This isn't just about shiny cardboard anymore, is it? It's this really complex interplay of market forces, human psychology, and deep cultural resonance. So if we try to connect this all to the bigger picture, what does this whole phenomenon ultimately tell us about human behavior, about how we assign value to things, and maybe about generational identity in our modern world?
Yeah, that's where the real insight lies, I think, tying together all these threads we've discussed. This Pokemon card resurgence is a truly fascinating case study. It tells us a lot about the psychology of collecting and how value is created and sustained, often far beyond mere material cost or practical utility. When we synthesize the themes, that potent nostalgia, the meticulously engineered scarcity we talked about, and the ongoing pop culture presence, we see they aren't just abstract market drivers. They are profoundly psychological motivators. They tap into some very deep human desire.
Like what kind of desires?
Well, collecting, at its core, taps into these primal human urges, don't you think? The desire for acquisition, that satisfaction of completing a set, finding the last piece, and also the preservation of sentiment, of memory. The emotional investment in these items often precedes or certainly enhances the financial one. We collect things that evoke strong feelings, things that connect us to a personal past or a shared cultural narrative.
The thrill of the hunt you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. The thrill of the hunt, the pride of ownership when you finally acquire that elusive card you've been searching for. It's all part of a powerful psychological payoff.
So it's not purely rational economics driving people to pay so much for these bits of paper. It's deeply emotional, maybe even primitive responses, like an innate drive we have to collect and categorize, but amplified by personal history and shared culture.
In many ways, yes. And tied into that is the narrative power behind these cards. That's equally significant, maybe even more so. Pokemon cards aren't just pieces of cardboard with stats. They are tangible artifacts of a rich, ongoing narrative world that has captured imaginations for decades now. This embedded storytelling, the universe of what is it now, over 1,000 creatures, their evolutions, their battles, their unique abilities, it greatly enhances their intrinsic value, the meaning they hold, and also their extrinsic value, the market price.
So you're not just buying a card, you're buying a piece of a story, a character, a memory, a connection to a beloved world you grew up with or are discovering now.
Precisely. And furthermore, the stories around the scarcity itself also contribute significantly. Those narratives we hear about first editions, the highly publicized celebrity ownership like Logan Paul's Charizard, those record-breaking auction results, they all create their own compelling narratives that feed back into the market interest and the perceived value.
It becomes part of the card's mythology almost.
Exactly. What's truly fascinating here is how effectively the Pokémon franchise has managed to leverage both its inherent narrative, its fictional universe, and that market-driven scarcity we discussed. They work together to maintain and amplify the appeal, creating this powerful, self-reinforcing cycle of demand and perceived value.
That makes so much sense. We are inherently storytellers and story listeners as humans, aren't we? And we love the stories behind our possessions. It's almost like the cards become a physical embodiment of a collective mythology, a shared cultural touchstone for millions.
Exactly right. And this brings us neatly to Pokemon's undeniable cultural staying power and its profound role in shaping generational identity, particularly for millennials. The cards act as this tangible bridge, don't they? Connecting cherished childhood memories with adult aspirations, whether those aspirations are purely nostalgic, increasingly financial, or more likely some blend of both.
A bridge between past and present selves.
hmm For millennials, specifically, Pokemon represents a huge shared cultural touchstone, a collective memory that reinforces their identity and provides a common language to connect with peers. Remember trading cards on the playground. It's an instant bonding point. And it even allows them to bridge the gap and connect with newer generations, their kids, nephews, nieces, who are just discovering the franchise through its latest iterations.
Keeping it alive across generations.
Right. The franchise's continuous evolution, with new video games, new anime series, new films regularly being released, ensures that fresh influx of fans. This cross-generational appeal is what really bolsters that cultural anchor argument we talked about. It helps ensure the relevance and potential value of these cards persist across age groups, rather than just fading away as a fleeting fad tied to one generation's childhood. It's a multi-generational phenomenon that somehow manages to stay fresh while honoring its nearly 30-year past.
What a journey then. From a simple card game exchanged on playgrounds to this incredibly complex market reflecting deep cultural trends and powerful psychological undercurrents. It's truly fascinating to see how Pokemon cards manage to bridge those childhood memories with very adult investments, creating this unique intersection of nostalgia, finance, and enduring pop culture. And as we wrap up this exploration, it kind of leaves us with an intriguing question to ponder, doesn't it? If childhood playthings, things made of paper, can become such serious adult investments, what does that imply about how we're defining value in our society today? And maybe what future cultural touchstones, what other things from our youth might follow a similar trajectory? Something to think about. Speaking of the internet buzzing, our next time unpacking trends, we dive into one of the biggest trending rumors right now. Is Taylor Swift engaged? Stay tuned.